Hi everybody, welcome to the DRF Breeding Report. I'm Dan Illman, always pleased to be talking pedigrees this time of year with Nicole Russo. And before we get into a deep dive, Nicole, of Rebel Stakes winner Malagasy's pedigree, some breaking news. Mastery, who some believe is the best 3-year-old of this crop, he just had a stud deal. Unfortunately, he's injured right now.
Yeah, Mastery had his stud deal inked. He'll be going to Claiborne Farm upon his eventual retirement, whenever that is. No decision has been made yet on whether he will be able to return to racing off that injury he sustained winning the San Felipe so impressively or not. But whether or not he runs again, Claiborne Farm, I think, inked a really good deal on this horse. He's already got that Grade 1 win as a 2-year-old, showing that juvenile precocity that's still valued in this market. He should be very commercial for Claiborne, which has made some big moves with its roster in the last year or two. And really, Mastery, just a stallion pedigree top and bottom. His sire, Candy Ride, is starting to turn out these young sons at stud who have already sired stakes winners. And the female family behind Mastery, responsible for Jumpstart, who's a leading sire in Pennsylvania, Ms. Waukee further back in the pedigree, another prominent sire. Mastery really has all the tools whenever he moves on to that second career at stud.
It's a shame he got hurt. Hopefully he'll come back to the racetrack. Either way, he's going to go to a historically important farm at Claiborne. As you mentioned, this horse had precocity and speed as a 2-year-old for Bob Baffert, then showed the ability to stretch out at 2 in the Cash Call Futurity, and last time out in the San Felipe Stakes, a very, very impressive performance. We see him turning into the stretch. This was supposed to be the prep of the year. He was in against Grade 1 winner Gormley. He was in against the much improved Iliad, and he just turned these horses away, not only showing speed, but a lot of stamina, heart, and determination. This is a very interesting stallion prospect down the road, even if he isn't able to continue his racing career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, it'd be wonderful if he were to come back to the racetrack, but in terms of what he has already shown, he has already stamped himself as a very exciting prospect down the line for Claiborne.
Mastery, of course, undefeated from 4 lifetime starts. Malagasy, the recent winner of the $900,000 Grade 2 Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn, he's undefeated from 3 starts, and it seems that Todd Pletcher is assembling an armada of 3-year-olds for this year's Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, Todd Pletcher was kind of this divide and conquer strategy, just sending his horses to all of these preps, looking for the best spots to each to punch their tickets to the first Saturday in May. And Malagasy, is the one he sent to the Rebel, which has been so historically important over the last decade or two, just turning out a lot of top horses. And Malagasy, I'll admit, I ate a little bit of crow on because I wasn't quite sure he wanted to go that far. And I mean, Dan, he sure turned him back well in the stretch of the Rebel there.
Let's take a look at that stretch run of the Rebel, because this pace was solid. There were a lot of questions and a lot of concerns as to whether Malagasy would stay this mile and a 16th in his first try around 2 turns, but he made the front. He held off all the late runners. It looked like he was getting a little bit tired, drifting in towards the rail at the end of this race. But at the end of the day, it was a really rock-solid performance, 91 Beyer speed figure, but the Kentucky Derby's a 1.25 miles, not a 1 1/16. So I wonder if your stamina fears might still play out with this horse. He's by Shackelford, a brilliant runner, won the Met Mile, won the Clark at 1 1/8, won the Preakness obviously at 1 3/16. A lot of speed and middle distance on the bottom of this pedigree, however.
Yeah, that was my concern with Malagasy. I think Shackelford was just a rock-solid runner. Whatever you threw him at was probably better at those middle distances of 1 mile to 1 1/8. But he could grit his teeth and, go that classic distance, in the Preakness, in these other races. Ran a very creditable 4th in the Kentucky Derby that year. So Malagasy reminds me a bit of Shackelford in that substance, in that maybe he's going a bit beyond his best distance, but he's going to grit his teeth and give you that effort, and that's very important. But I would like to see more stamina on the bottom side of his pedigree to sort of balance out that tendency from Shackelford. And really, when you look at Malagasy's, immediate half-siblings there's not a lot of that. He's got one half-sibling who won, going 1 mile and 70 yards, but the rest of them did their best work at sprint distances. So that's really my concern with him down there, is what sort of foundation does he have? But hey, he did what he needed to do to move ahead on the Derby trail, and we'll see if he can keep outrunning those suggested limitations from his pedigree.
We'll obviously learn more. The Arkansas Derby appears to be next on his dance card at 1 1/8 miles. Shackelford stands for $15,000 at Derby Dan. He's an exciting young stallion prospect, but I agree with you about the lack of distance in this female family. He has one black-type earner as a half-sibling. That Classy Gem was a stakes-placed dirt sprinter. The dam's a half-sister to Impossible Time, who I think was a champion in Canada, champion mare. She was a multiple stakes winner, but sort of at middle distances on turf and synthetic. Malagasy went through the auction ring 3 times, a $45,000 weanling, a $130,000 yearling, a $190,000 Fasig-Tipton May 2-year-old in training. But he's done nothing wrong, but it will be interesting to see how he stretches his ability to 1 1/8 miles and even 1 1/4 miles in the Kentucky Derby. He's a very promising contender, Nicole, but right now the jury's still out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't knock him for having done nothing wrong at this point of his career, but I certainly think there are a lot of questions moving forward with him.
We'll see if distance stops Malagasy. Next week on the Breeding Report, we will have a lot to talk about. There are 3 Kentucky Derby qualifying point races. The UAE Derby, of course, at Meydan on the Dubai World Cup undercard. The Sunland Derby at Sunland, a very rich pot. And, of course, the Spiral at Turfway Park. We'll see you next week.